Chapter 50, The Lesson, Hanyu's POV. Hanyu was in an excellent mood. He loved the faint stinging at his neck that reminded him with every turn of his head that he'd done his job and fed his master again after so much time. Even better than that was the memory of Lord Theodora's words running over and over in his mind. It seems like something very intense is happening with you two. Lord Theodora was Antony's best friend, and, come to think of that, Lord Marcus was his lover. Surely if they both said that Antony's relationship with Hanyu was different from what it had been with the others, it had to be true. Things were changing between them. Hanyu was certain of it. Their intimacy hadn't reached a place of pleasant companionship and plateaued. It kept escalating. Hanyu slept naked in Antony's bed with the god clutched in his arms, for goodness sake. Surely it was only a matter of time before Antony recognized what was going on and made Hanyu his in every way. His mood only improved when they returned to their rooms, and Antony sat to remove his boots. This time, Hanyu was quick enough to kneel at his feet and bat his hands away from the laces. "Allow me," he said, grinning up at his god. Antony squinted down at him, looking confused and a little suspicious. All right, go ahead. I'm not a fly. There's no call to swat at me." Hanyu undid the laces and slipped off the boots, then set them aside and took advantage of his position to lean his elbows against his god's knees and smile at him. With Antony sitting and Hanyu on his knees, he actually got to look up at his master for a change. "Are you feeling better now that you've eaten?" he asked. "Much." Antony said it with so much conviction that Hanyu couldn't restrain a little wiggle of joy. "I'm so glad Lord Theodora helped us." I doubt she'd mind if you called her Theo." The god huffed a little laugh. "Actually, she'd probably like it." Hanyu's jaw sagged for a moment before he snapped it shut and shook his head vigorously. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" Antony demanded. "I'd be too awestruck. Even here with you, I couldn't bring myself to do it." Antony's customary frown deepened, his lower lip sticking out just enough that Hanyu would almost have called it a pout. "You don't have any trouble using my name." "That's different." Hanyu leaned in closer, letting his elbows slide up the god's thighs so that his chest could rest against the hard points of Antony's knees. "I'm yours." Antony looked like he was waiting for something more, an explanation or elaboration, most likely. Hanyu himself hardly knew what he meant by the statement. "I'm yours, so we don't need titles when we both know that you own all of me. I'm yours, so I know you'll look after me. I'm yours, so we're together all day, and how can I be scared of you the whole time when I get to see you pouting like this?" Antony seemed to give up on any further embellishment, breaking their eye contact to give a lazy stretch. Hanyu drank in the sinuous movement and didn't bother trying to suppress his reaction. It still amazed him how much power was contained in those shoulders and arms. Even the delicate wrists and slender fingers amazed him and thrilled him. He hoped he wouldn't have to wait too long for Antony to claim him. "She's not all that impressive, the god groused. "When we were children, she used to pick her nose." Hanyu rolled her eyes. "All children do that." "I didn't." Antony was all stiff, offended dignity, and Hanyu felt quite sure that he was lying. "And she always swore at inappropriate times, and she still can't dance." "Really?" Hanyu was delighted with all these tidbits that hadn't made it into any of the hymns, but the last one made him a little uneasy. He shifted on his knees and dropped his gaze. He was a tolerable dancer when he managed to pay attention, but nothing more than that. He knew that Antony adored music. Was he also a lover of dance? Hanyu would hate to disappoint him again. "Really," the god confirmed. "She used to tromp all over my toes. I suppose now she tromps on her harem's toes instead, though I suppose that Gyuri woman would stab her for it." Hanyu relaxed a little. "Oh, you meant partner dancing. I never learned that." It was Antony's turn to ask, "Really?" "Our dances are supposed to be performances," Hanyu explained. "Some of them are quite erotic." Antony ignored his lowered voice and sultry gaze. "But you didn't learn any partner dances?" "The priest didn't think you would want to watch us dance with each other." Hanyu shrugged. "What if we want to dance with you?" Oh, the paths Hanyu's mind skipped down with that simple question. He thought of the Duke's ball in the book he'd read Chihiro the other day, the elegant couples clasped in each other's arms. It was all so romantic. Hanyu thought he might swoon if Antony actually meant... You want to dance with me? He breathed. Antony scowled. I never said that. Will you teach me? Hanyu begged. What if you do want to dance with me someday and I don't know how? You wouldn't have brought it up if you didn't think you might want it someday. I'm so lucky to have you here to tell me what I think and want. Please, Antony. The god's scowl deepened and Hanyu knew he had won. What kind of dance do you want to learn? Antony's voice was sulky. The ones they do in Lord Theodora's books. Hanyu squirmed backwards on his knees, then got to his feet and held his hands out to Antony. His master groaned, but allowed himself to be drawn to his feet. Court dances aren't very exciting. But they don't sound hard. Hanyu dragged Antony's hands up to his shoulders and wrapped his arms around the god. Don't we just do this and spin? Antony's growl was a little less convincing when he was smothering a grin. For goodness sakes, boy, of course not. Here. Hanyu allowed his master to reposition them. Antony didn't press against his chest as he'd hoped, but kept some space between them. He drew one of Hanyu's hands up to his ribcage, then rested his own hand delicately on Hanyu's shoulder. Their free hands were clasped together but held away from their bodies. Hanyu didn't care. He was too thrilled by the feeling of Antony's slender, chilly fingers gripped in his own and the sight of the god's clear silver gaze fixed on him to mind a little distance. All right. Antony's voice was all business. Put your weight on your right foot, then step forward with your left, your other left. Leave your right foot where it is. Hanyu glanced down at his feet and obeyed. Antony mirrored his movements and gave his shoulder a quick, encouraging pat. Good, the god said. Now rock back onto your right foot, then bring your left foot back so we're standing square again. Perfect. Weight on your left foot now and step back on your right. No, back. Good. Rock onto your left foot, then bring the right foot forward. See? As long as you remember that you shift your weight with every step, it's easy. They repeated the movements a few more times, then Antony began counting time. His voice rapped out a quick, 1, 2, 3, hold 4, 5, 6, 7, hold 8. Hanyu didn't know how he managed to keep messing up such a simple step. He'd memorized much more intricate dances at the temple, but now there was someone else right in front of him, and he kept worrying that he would step on Antony's feet. The worrying didn't stop him from actually doing it, unfortunately. Sorry, he said with a sympathetic wince as his foot came down on Antony's toes. Don't stop to apologize, the god instructed. You'll lose the rhythm. Anyhow, it's fine. You're not going to break me. Come on, we'll start over. 1, 2, 3. Hanyu couldn't help apologizing the next time he stepped on his master, or the next. Antony brushed off each mistake without any apparent annoyance and kept showering Hanyu in little half-careless compliments. Good. Perfect. Just like that. Every time he managed to go a step or two without an error. He seemed to take much more naturally to teaching than Hanyu did to the dance. I'm sorry, Hanyu groaned after tangling their feet for what felt like the 100th time. I'm so stupid at dance. Well, just stupid, I guess. For the first time, Antony sounded angry. Don't be ridiculous. You're not stupid. You're not stupid. The god snapped out those words like they didn't mean anything, like they didn't hit Hanyu with bruising force. All these years, he thought he didn't mind being sweet, stupid Hanyu. How could he have never realized how badly he wanted to hear that he wasn't? Antony was still speaking, oblivious to Hanyu's turmoil. This is just new, and you're already doing a good deal better than Theo. Come on, stop looking at your feet. It's easier if you don't watch them. Look at me instead. That was never a hard order to obey, especially not when Antony had just gifted him with words he'd been waiting his whole life to hear without even realizing it. Hanyu gazed down at his god, addled with adoration. Antony gazed back and resumed counting without breaking their eye contact. Once Hanyu let himself really think about what Antony had said and how it made him feel, he knew he would want to fling himself at his master's feet, shower his hands with kisses, hug him, or at least burst into tears. As such, he stored the thought away for later and tried to focus on the dancing. Good, Antony praised, and Hanyu was astonished to find that while his head was swimming with other thoughts, his feet seemed to have gotten the hang of the dance. A few more counts and his god was looking up at him with that cautious little smile, which for him was practically beaming. Antony sounded proud when he broke his count to say, There, see? You've got it. I do, Hanyu cheered. I'm doing it. I told you. Antony kept counting and they kept dancing. Now that Hanyu wasn't preoccupied with his own feet, he could see how beautifully his master moved. Antony's whole body swayed with the smooth control of a snake at each step, yet his posture stayed straight. How did he manage to keep his form while looking so loose? The way he swiveled his hips, oh gods, his pelvis. Hanyu had to swallow a few times and force his gaze back up to Antony's unimpressed face. "I thought you said you'd studied erotic dance," the god said. "Surely this isn't scandalizing you." Scandalizing, no. Arousing, yes. None of the sinuous thrusting and writhing Hanyu had watched his cadre and their teachers perform had had anything like this effect on him. He swallowed again. "Of course not," he rasped. On Hanyu's next distracted step, he stepped down so hard on Antony's foot that he lost his own balance and fell. Or he would have fallen if Antony hadn't caught him. The hand that held his own tightened while the arm that had rested on his shoulders slid down, faster than thought, and latched around his waist, catching his weight and holding him in a loose backwards bow. Antony's arm was short enough that in order to get it around Hanyu's waist, the god had to bend over a good deal himself, leaving his face hovering just a few inches above Hanyu's own. Hanyu gazed up at his master and felt his heart hammering wildly in his chest, not just from the exercise or the fall. Antony's eyes were a little wide and startled, his face framed with some escaped silver strands, his lips so thin and soft and perfect and close. Hanyu parted his own lips without even thinking about it. The god's gaze darted down to them, lightning fast, and then back up. Hanyu couldn't be quite sure, but he thought that he had seen Antony's pupils blow wide. Antony leaned back and set Hanyu easily on his feet. "Well," the god cleared his throat and took a step back. "That's one way to learn to dip, though I think next time you should dip me. I must say, you really are much better at this than Theo." Hanyu opened his mouth without any particular plan for his words and found himself saying, "You thought about kissing me." He flushed and covered his mouth, but his reaction was nothing compared to Antony's. The god did not so much step as leap back until he was pressed against the wall, as far from Hanyu as he could possibly get. His eyes were wild, not with the anger Hanyu had expected, but with what he could have sworn was fear. "I did not!" Antony spat. "I thought no such thing! Don't tell me what I think!" Hanyu sank to his knees, not because of any fear of his own, but because he wanted to assure the panicked god that he wasn't going to come any closer. He felt suddenly like he was facing a frightened bird and trying to keep it from taking wing. "I'm sorry," he said. "Of course I don't know what you're thinking. I was wrong. Forgive me, my lord." He kept his gaze fixed on Antony until the god's eyes stopped bulging quite so wide. Once he felt sure his master wasn't going to turn and run from the room, he pressed his forehead to the floor to give Antony a private moment to recover. It also allowed Hanyu to hide his own face-splitting grin. His heart was still giving a fast, joyous patter as he remembered the moment when he was still quite sure his own beloved Lord Antony had been about to kiss him.